Since the brand says it's down for whatever. No, it doesn't say that. Yeah, it does. Suspension. Travel. Yeah. Behind me is the Guerrilla Gravity Trail Pistol, which is a 120, 130 millimeter travel bike. We're testing it in the downcountry category, since the brand says it's down for whatever country. As tested, this bike is $5,895 US. A couple of the key components include the RockShox Pike Ultimate Fork, Fox DPX2 rear shock, SRAM's Guide Ultimate brakes, and it has DT Swiss carbon wheels. But Guerrilla Gravity allows you to customize that build kit, so if the dropper post or the wheels, drivetrain don't work for you, you can swap them out to suit your preferences and your riding style. The Trail Pistol uses Guerrilla Gravity's Freedom linkage, which they say provides a lot of tuning options for both air shocks and coil shocks. There are flip chips on the seat stay that adjust the way the bike uses its travel. Plush mode makes the bike softer off the top and through the mid-stroke. Crush mode brings the support higher into the travel. It's ideal for a rider who's looking to pump through the terrain more efficiently, as well as having the snappiest pedaling platform. The Trail Pistol also has what Guerrilla Gravity calls their Modular 1 platform. Part of that is that geo-adjust headset that allows you to run it in a short or a long position. And then there's also seat stay tuning kits, which Guerrilla Gravity sells separately. So with the same frame, you can actually make different models based on changing the seat stay. A couple other features of this made in Colorado frame include the integrated external cable routing. They also have a frame storage system so that you can store a tube on the frame in a convenient location. So let's get into our details about how it rides on the trails.
In the downcountry category, we used Maxxis Minion DHF tires up front in a 2.5 inch size at 19 PSI, and out back we ran the Maxxis Minion DHR2 in a 2.4 inch size at 21 PSI.
As per Guerrilla Gravity's recommendations, I rode this bike in the short setting with the 50 millimeter stem. I tried both the crush and the plush mode, and I found that plush mode was just a lot more comfortable on the trails that we have here in Pemberton.
Yep, I ran it at both plush and crush mode as well and settled on plush, as did Sarah. Also ran the short and long settings on the headset and settled on short out here.
The steep seat tube angle on the Guerrilla Gravity really keeps you in a powerful position for climbing. The bike has a slightly slacker head tube angle and a bit of a longer reach. It's actually the longest, even in that short setting, it's still the longest bike that we're riding here. And so even in that shorter setting, it's a little bit slower just to make its way around the corners when you go up steep single track.
Yeah, because of the frame geometry, it's not like the front end is trying to lift on you on climbs, but the front wheel is still a pretty long way in front of you, so you kind of just have to pay attention to it a little bit more to make sure it's going where you want it to go.
I was able to make it up the super steep climbs really easily. That being said, when I took it up the Forest Service Road, which is a 45-minute climb, just pretty steep, relentless gravel climb, I found it a little bit exhausting because of that little bit more weight than the other bikes that we have here.
And this is the nicest build that Guerrilla Gravity offers, just about, but it's still about 1.5 pounds heavier than the Juliana, which also wasn't a super light bike. In most situations, it's not a big deal, but it definitely wears on you the longer you climb on it.
I go home famously.
So I'd say the descending manners on the Guerrilla Gravity is maybe my favorite aspect of the bike. Every time I ride a bike with geometry that's this progressive, I honestly kind of wonder why everyone doesn't follow suit. It's so easy to ride, it's so comfortable, it's so neutral, it's so easy to push hard in the corners, and yet while it's so good at high speeds, it's still certainly nimble enough at lower speeds that I never felt like it was too long, at least in the shorter setting.
As for the suspension, it's going to sound like a cliche, but it really does feel like you have more travel than that 120, 130 millimeters. And you really don't have to be picky about what line you choose. You can just kind of straight line it through everything and take the fastest line on all the trails here. So our test loop had 0.5 kilometer of climbing, some single track, some steeper climbs, and there's 90 meters of elevation during that 0.5 kilometer. And then it came into a trickier descent with some steep rock rolls that really gave you a good feeling for how the bikes could ride. I tied for one of the fastest descending times, and then on the climb, it was the slowest bike.
So my time laps were a little more interesting for me. I did expect that this bike would be a lot slower climbing and faster descending, but it actually ended up being kind of more middle of the road on both sides for me. To me, it seems like the Guerrilla Gravity really doesn't actually climb slower for me, at least on a climb of that duration. And while the descent wasn't necessarily faster for me, I also had a lot more fun on that bike.
So we were really happy with the spec that we had on this bike. It's pretty comparable to all the other bikes that we're riding here in the downcountry category, and we didn't have any issues with any of the components on this bike.
Yeah, the flexibility and customization is pretty amazing, and a lot of that does boil down to the fact that Guerrilla Gravity does sell consumer direct instead of through shops or distributors. And we had very comparable spec to the other bikes in the downcountry category, but yet this thing still came in under $6,000.
I think we both really love that geometry. It's fantastic both climbing and descending. It's also super versatile, and there's that potential to have many bikes in one. It may matter more to some people who live there than others, but it's still pretty cool that the bike is made in Colorado. And then there's just a really great value proposition, and there's tons of different options for your build kit.
Looks are obviously subjective, but for both of us, we have to say that the overall appearance of the Trail Pistol didn't really seem super refined, either in the lines of the frame or in the graphics that they used. There's also no getting around the fact that this frame is heavy. We figured that given Guerrilla Gravity's estimates, it's about maybe a little over 7 pounds with the shock, which is a lot for a downcountry bike. Part of that is due to the modular nature of how they designed it and the way that they do the carbon, and if you want some more details on that, we do have a video. If Guerrilla Gravity used a more conventional setup without a modular platform and with a more conventional carbon layup, you probably could lop at least a pound out of the frame. And this might seem a little bit nitpicky, but if you prefer to ride with a bottle, it's nice that you can fit a bottle on this bike, but the mount is pretty awkward. The bottle hangs from the top tube, and you have to be really careful what kind of cage you run. So no single bike is going to be amazing in absolutely every condition, but if you're kind of more of a middle-of-the-road kind of rider, then I think the Trail Pistol is a great option between the way that they nailed the geometry and the pedaling performance and the versatility and the build kit and the modularity of the frame. It could be a good one-bike solution for a lot of people. It's actually a bike I think I'd own.
So there you have it, the Guerrilla Gravity Trail Pistol. Stay tuned for more videos from the Pinkbike Field Test, as well as a downcountry roundtable that showcases all of the bikes that we were talking about here.